everyone, and welcome to the 8th week of creative writing. I am your teacher, Hayleigh Worgan. Thank you guys so much for joining me this week. And this week we're going to be talking about character motivation and imagery and how you can help your readers connect to your characters. So I wanted to go ahead and start by just quickly saying thank you guys so much for catching up on your work. You're doing a great job. You may have noticed there are some extra credit, or there is an extra credit opportunity that I just posted this weekend in the classroom. It's going to be worth 10 points. And I encourage you guys to do it. It's a fun little writing exercise, and it's a good way to earn points. It's also a good way to get some practice in with another writing prompt. So I'm going to put one of those up each month, and those extra credit opportunities are going to have a very strict deadline. So if you don't, do them by the deadline, then, you're just going to have to wait until the end of the month for the next extra credit opportunity to come around. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started by talking about character motivation. So we can often draw conclusions about character motivation in our reading by looking at evidence from the text and comparing it to what we know about real life. Now, what I mean by that is if a character, for example, an adult character, scolds their child for crying at the supermarket when they tell them they can't have something they want, we know at least two things about these characters. Okay, so one, the parent is most likely trying to teach their child how to respond appropriately when they are told no. And two, the child is likely still upset or embarrassed about being scolded. So right there we have two different perspectives, but we know that the motivation for the feelings for each character is going to be a little different. So if we have the story told from the point of view of the child, we're going to get probably a little bit of a different perspective, definitely a different perspective, but maybe even a different story than if we got the story from the point of view or the perspective of the parent. So we can then draw a conclusion, right? Perhaps the parent wants to teach their child about self-control, okay? And then from the point of view of the child, perhaps this memory will be the start of some kind of conflict between the child and the parent, which then could develop over the short story or the novel or the personal essay as the child ages. And this is just the first memory that they have this sort of conflict, this type of conflict happening between them. So when we talk about point of view, we want to consider how point of view changes our understanding of a character. Because if we're told that story from the point of view of the child, we might not think that favorably about the parent, right? I mean, we would probably get kind of a biased point of view from the point of view of the child being scolded. And if we're told that story from the point of view of the parent, then we might think, oh, they're a good parent. They're just trying to teach their child a lesson in a constructive way about self-control or about how to respond when you are told no. So I'm going to read you a selection. It's an excerpt from a short story by Richard Peck. It's called I Go Along. And I want you to listen to the point of view of this story, and then we're going to discuss how it could be a little bit different if it was told from a different point of view. Since it is only the second period of the day, we're all feeling pretty good. Also, it's Tuesday, a terrible TV night. Everybody in the class puts up their hands. I mean everybody. Even Marty Crawshaw and Pink Hohenfield, who's in the class today for the first time this month. I put up mine. I go along. Mrs. Tibbets looks amazed. She's never seen this many hands up in our class. She's never seen anybody's hand except Darla's. But then she sees we have to be putting her on, so she says, anyone who would like to go, be in the parking lot at 5:30 and eat first. No eating on the bus. Mrs. Tibbets can drive the school bus. Whenever she's taking the advanced class anywhere, she can go to the principal for the keys. She can use the bus anytime she wants to, unless the coach needs it. Then she opens her attendance book and we tune out. And at 5:30 that night, I'm in the parking lot. I have no idea why. Needless to say, I'm the only one here from second period. Marty Crawshaw and Pink Hohenfield will be out on the access highway about now at 7-Eleven, sitting on their hoods. Darla couldn't make it either. Right offhand, I can't think of anybody who wants to ride a school bus 30 miles to see a poet, including me. The advanced English juniors are milling around behind school. I'm still in my car, and it's almost dark, so nobody sees me. Then Mrs. Tibbets wheels the school bus in. She's got the amber fogs flashing, and you can see the black letters along the side. Consolidated School District. She swings in and hits the brakes, and the doors fly open. The advanced class starts to climb aboard. They're more orderly than us, but they've got their groups too. I'm settling behind my dashboard. The last kid climbs on the bus. And I seem to be sprinting across the asphalt. I'm on the bus, and the door's hissing shut behind me. When I swing past the driver's seat, I don't look at Mrs. Tibbets, and she doesn't say anything. I wonder where I'm supposed to sit. They're still milling around in the aisle, but there are plenty of seats. I find an empty double and settle by the window, pulling my ball cap down in front. It doesn't take us long to get out of town, not in this town. When we go past the 7-Eleven, I'm way down in the seat with my hand shielding my face on the window side. Right about then, somebody sits down next to me. I flinch. Okay, so we've just heard this story from the point of view of the narrator, who, his name is Gene, and we don't actually know that in the story, but if you read the entire story, you find out that his name is Gene. And you find out from the very beginning that he is in Mrs. Tibbets' class, one of her classes, and he and his fellow classmates find out that Mrs. Tibbets is taking the advanced English class to a poetry reading. Now, Mrs. Tibbets invites her other classes as well, and other people in Jean's class raise their hands saying that they want to go. But Jean is the only one who turns up in this story. And he's a little embarrassed by this, right? He doesn't want to be made fun of by his peers, by his friends, who are hanging out down at the 7-Eleven, just kind of hanging out after school rather than going to see this poet at the poetry reading. And so, we see him kind of hide down in his seat. We see him rush to the bus, right? He doesn't even really think about it. He just finds himself rushing to the bus at the last minute. He just decides, okay, I'm here, I'm just going to go, right? And so we find that, we get a lot of interesting details from his perspective about this experience. But I want to ask you to think about something. And that is, how would this excerpt be different if Mrs. Tibbets, that's the teacher, so if Mrs. Tibbets was the narrator of the story, how would the story be different, right? So think about that for a second. Now, if Mrs. Tibbets was the narrator, we might know what she thinks when all of the students raise their hands in class, right? We might know what she thinks about having to get the bus from, the principal, the bus keys from the principal, only being able to use it when the coach doesn't need it, right? We might know what she thinks about the poetry reading that night, why she's taking her class to go see it. And we also might know what she thinks when Jean, the only student from her other class, rushes onto the bus, doesn't say anything to her, and just quickly tries to find a seat and tries not to be noticed. We might get her thoughts on that situation. So with that in mind, I want us to think about how imagery helps us understand the story from the point of view of the character who is telling it. So last week, I asked you to write a short poem from the first-person point of view of the character you chose 2 weeks ago, using the answers to the questions about their surroundings that you had in week 6. So this week, I'm asking you to write a short story, less than 500 words, but at least 250, so between 250 and 500 words, from the perspective of another character. However, I want you to write about an interaction with the first character you chose. Okay, so what do I mean? I'm going to show you. Now, you can refer to week 6 and 7 videos for the first character I chose, but I will go ahead and tell you here now that I did choose the older gentleman who is standing in front of the driveway in the fields, and he has a dress shirt on. And so I'll go ahead and show you those images again now. Okay, so we have the 4 images. Now we have the older gentleman, we have the teenager with his head kind of in his hands. You guys seem to really like that one. You chose that one a lot. And then we have the teenage girl with the blue hair, you know, kind of hanging out with the sunglasses on. And then we have the younger girl on the bicycle. And so for my second character, I decided to choose the younger girl on the bicycle. And I wrote this story called Bell Songs. Mom says we can't see Grandpa again until the weather is warmer and the virus disappears. Isabella, he has already told me that he will not wear a mask. We cannot get Grandpa sick because he might not make it. She is afraid to say the word die. But I know that she means he might not make it, like Grandma didn't make it after she got sick with the flu a couple of years ago. She means might not make it to my dance recital in the fall, or to see my sister graduate from high school. She means might not make it back to hug me again. Grandpa doesn't come to the city. He says he doesn't want the calluses on his hands to get smooth from all the boredom. Out in the fields, his body knows when it is time to head back to the house and prepare to rest in the evening. The sun and stars tell him when to go to sleep and wake back up. Bells, how do you even sleep at night? He asked me once as we listened to the crickets chirping away in the fields from his front porch. All those horns honking, people chattering, and bright lights outside your window? I'd have to put a pillow over my old head and try to hum myself to sleep. Papa taught me how to ride my bike the summer before Grandma died. She watched us from her rocking chair on the porch as he guided me around their driveway. He took the training wheels off for me, and he stayed close by because Grandma said I could fall off and skin those pretty little knees. I got used to the familiar weight of his hand on my back, and my confidence grew. I pumped my feet faster, too fast. Papa couldn't keep up. As soon as I felt his hands leave my back, I knew I was in trouble. Papa, I called, and suddenly I was on the ground. My knee was bleeding. Papa had me in his arms in an instant, but I was still crying. He carried me to the porch as Grandma hurried inside to get bandages. It's okay, Bella, he said. I know it hurts, but Grandma is going to fix you right up. He sat there with me as she cleaned and bandaged the cut. I don't think I want to ride my bike anymore, Papa, I whimpered. Papa and Grandma looked quickly at one another, and she said, I'm going to go inside and get you some water, Belle. When she was gone, Papa said, Bella, how did you feel on your bike before you got scared? How did the wind feel as it blew past your face? It felt like I was flying. I see, he said. He was quiet for a minute, and then he said, learning to fly is scary, Bella, and it comes with great responsibility. You must be careful. You must control it and not let it control you. And if you want to fly, you must practice and make your wings strong so they can carry you instead of knock you down. Sometimes when I miss my grandma and grandpa, I ask my mom if I can ride my bike through the city park. She doesn't usually mind, especially if my older sister comes along to make sure I am okay. I don't close my eyes on those rides, but sometimes I stare straight ahead and pretend that I don't see the concrete or the graffiti. Instead, I hear the dogs barking from the farm down the road. I smell summer rain coming across the fields. I see my grandma fanning herself on the front porch with a big smile on her face. I feel my grandpa's hand on my back as I push the pedals once more, despite the small sting on my left knee. In those moments, everyone makes it back home for dinner and a piece of Grandma's chocolate cake. My heart feels full, and right there on the winter streets in Brooklyn, I find my wings and I fly. Okay, so what you might notice about my story here is that I used my new character I chose from the photos to talk about my first character. So we get a totally different story, but we still get a lot of the same imagery and details. The fields, the smell of the summer rain, the old kind of calloused hands, the detail about the grandma that the grandpa is missing from the first poem I wrote last week, right? And so you even in this story, you have the detail of the dogs barking, so that's something you hear. Okay, so again, these things are kind of carried over, but they allow a little bit of a relationship to form between those two pieces. Now, some new things in this story have to do with the details of the lights, something you see in the city, or the horns blaring, or the people talking outside. So, what I want you to do this week is to choose another photo from the 4 provided in the slide presentation and in this video, and talk about the first character you chose from the point of view or the perspective of your new character. Okay? And we're going to think a little bit about motivation. We're going to think about why the characters are doing what they're doing, right? Why they have these feelings about the relationships that they have. I want you to use imagery to help your readers connect with your new character and their experiences. Okay, so help me visualize the situation with details that talk about sight, sound, taste, feeling, and or smell. So your short story should be between 250 and 500 words, and it is due on March 5th, that's this Friday, by 11:59 p.m. Okay, so for those of you who have not turned in your assignment from last week, it will help you to do that one first. Okay, so do your week 7 assignment first, please, and then do the week 8 assignment, because you need to go step by step. You need to talk about your first character, get to know them through your writing, help your reader, me, get to know them through your imagery and your writing, and then move to your second character, who is going to discuss that character and a relationship with that character. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, please let me know. And yeah, great job on getting your work caught up, and please let me know if you have any questions. Email me. My email will be in the comments of the Google Classroom. It will also be in the slide presentation for you on the first and last slides. Okay, so hang in there, guys. I know that things are really difficult right now, and you're doing great. So I believe in you. Okay, and I will see you again in this week in virtual class hours if you stop by, or next week when I post a new lesson. Have a great week, guys. Bye.